to have to, like, action. I'll just get in a little bit. There, I'm happy with that. How's your day been anyway?
It's actually been a very good day.
Yeah?
Yeah. Sometimes, like with the Monday, if one or two things don't go to plan, then it kind of snowballs.
And fucks the rest of your day.
Oh, the rest of the week, you're like, oh, God. If Monday gets off to a bad start, it's kind of like a very long week. So far, it's been a pretty good one. Got a fair bit of work to do tonight, but all good things.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. If you've got work to do, I know what it's like when you...
It's quite all right.
People say if you hate Mondays, you hate 1/7 of your entire life. So, you can't pick out a day. But...
no, if I'm busy, then presently it's for good reasons.
That's good.
And especially in the current climate, I should never be caught knocking that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you do hear me, then you can remind me I said this. But they're all good problems.
That's good problems to have. Yeah, good problems to have in business. That's
definitely.
Problem. Yeah. So, welcome everyone. I'm here with Jack of Spartan. Jack Lovett is a 2-time British national strongman, natural strongman champion, and competed on the world stage also. He's the owner of Spartan Performance, what I would say is one of the best facilities in the country, if not Europe, if not the world. And Jack has consistently bred high-level competitors and athletes under his own tuition and under the tuition of your staff. I think that's fair to say. But Jack also develops programs for people both offline and online. I believe so. Yep. And also Jack develops seminars and offers consultancy services for other fitness professionals that are looking to start up or that are starting to maybe develop further their own businesses. Would you say that's a fair assessment of your business, Jack? Have I missed anything out?
I would say it's a fair assessment.
Okay.
We've certainly had a lot of success working with athletes of all level, but especially at the professional level. And I'm also lucky enough to have a reasonable amount of success in a consultancy capacity, whether that be for business owners who are wanting to set up a gym similar to mine or just a new gym business, or working in a consultancy capacity for coaches or trainers who want to improve their craft. But I'd argue, that's probably what we're most renowned for, right? Especially if, out of the local area for sure. If you follow us in the media or anything else like that, that tends to be what you read. But I'd argue the vast majority of our business, easily 90%, especially over the last 12, 13 years, has been getting equally, what I would argue is equally as impressive results, but with, I hate the term, but average Joes. Average James.
I would say I'm an average Joe.
You don't need to be a professional athlete to work at Spartan, to work on, or to get success from Spartan programs or anything else like that. So for every UFC fighter that I have, then I've got 100, well, not presently, but we've had hundreds of clients over the years that are, either work 9 to 5, work shifts, they've got careers, They're not going to compete in any sort of athletic endeavor to the professional level, but they still have goals, they still have aspirations, and that's where we do the vast majority of our work, and I would argue many of our successes come there as well. So, by that little bit, I'd say it was a fairly good intro.
Maybe I did lean on the professional aspect too much, but when I'm in the gym, I look around at the walls and I see a lot of successes from people, which is a great accolade. But also, I see those same people on the floor.
Yes.
And they're very much friendly as well. I find it's a very conjovial atmosphere, if that's the right word. I'm a layman in resistance training. I just, I'm an amateur at best, but the people in there that are professionals are very welcoming. Yourself and your staff have always been very welcoming. But I see those successes you're talking about with people. You see ladies or gentlemen or even kids come in, and then you see them 8 months later, and it's nice to see, isn't it?
It's fantastic to see.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think it's crucial that the atmosphere is like that. I like the term community. I think it's very important that we have the community that you just alluded to there. So yes, we can have great success from individuals, teams, whatever they may be. And granted, we've got a fairly exclusive wall, because unless you win, unless you podium at a national championship, you don't get on the wall. So it's not a taking part wall.
Yes.
It's a winner's wall, or at least a podium
Yes. Yeah.
wall. And we've got that, and that's up there, not necessarily to impress people, though it does to an extent, but it's to impress upon people, what you can get if you put that hard work in.
Aspirational.
Exactly, yeah, to me, I want to aspire to those that I see on the wall. Excuse me. But it's great, nice pictures on the wall. You must have that atmosphere. You must have that community where everybody's welcome. Basically, what I envisaged Spartan as was a facility, a place, a community of like-minded people.
Good.
Like-minded in terms of they will pursue their goal relentlessly, but with good structure, discipline, determination. But it doesn't really matter what that goal may be. So we could have a UFC fighter in there, we could have a professional this, that, the other, fine. Well, we've got clients presently, they're not as young as 7, we have taken as young as 7 in the past, but we've got 30 and 40-year-olds in the gym, and we've got 82-year-olds in the gym. And we've got all shapes, sizes, demographics, sex. It's irrelevant.
And the equipment reflects that as well, I think.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think, because you've got it, there's a bench press, which I'm very fond of, as we've just talked about, but then at the top end is the strongman stuff.
Yes.
So if you want to lift a keg, you can go and lift a keg. But if you want to go and do some dumbbell work, you can go and do some dumbbell work. And, I think, not that the two are mutually exclusive, but I just think, a good range of power racks. I mean, there's so much you can do with a power rack. But
I'll tell you, why do we have the equipment range at Spartan? Why does it look the way it does? Bar the fact that the dominant colour scheme is black. Take a look at me, okay.
Comes in one colour.
Yeah. It's like a Johnny Cash all the way through. But bar that, it's really, really simple. Spartan is business. I'm a businessman. And you're a client of ours. And I appreciate your investment of money. And I want to keep taking money from you. The only way that I'm going to be able to do that, medium and long term, never mind short term, is making sure that I've got the right tool for the right person at the right time. And hence we have such a range of equipment so that we can attend to the type of clientele, we can attend to the highest possible level to the type of clientele that come through the door.
Great. Yeah.
And Spartan isn't a strongman facility. What is it? Is it a powerlifting facility? Is it a fighters facility? I keep mentioning these invisible, non-existent UFC fighters. What is it? All they are, and I'm terrible when I give tours of the gym. It's
right.
I'll talk about it, but I'm like, okay, and there's the lumps of metal, and there's the green carpet, the turf. They're just tools. And yes, I'd argue that we have some of the finest tools in the world, if you're an aficionado of gym equipment, but ultimately they're just lumps of metal. It's the application on them, so that comes from the programming, comes from the coaching that we give, but also the community that we touched on before that brings it to life as well.
And I really do enjoy the community. I'm notoriously an antisocial person, but I do like, going in the gym and, I am standoffish at times with people, but you do get words of encouragement from people when you're doing things, and it's really good. And your community, I think is almost built around this philosophy that you have, which is come home with your shield or on it. I don't want to butcher the Latin of that, so I'll give you a second to do that yourself, but not butcher it. You'll pronounce it perfectly. But it's my understanding, if this is not only your training philosophy, but maybe your life's philosophy. And what I would kind of want to ask is, my understanding of that is you give the maximum amount of effort in everything you do. Fair enough. Do you think that's absolutely necessary in all endeavours? And do you think that's obtainable?
Okay.
Or is it an aspirational thing?
First and foremost, what is this thing? It's ancient Greek, by the way.
Ancient Greek, not Latin, okay.
Aitan, iepitas.
Sorry.
And I remember I was in a classical civilizations class, about 14, 15 years old. I was at the grammar school in Newcastle, learned about the Greeks, and you get Sparta, the ancient Spartans. And basically, it was brought up then, and obviously I've learned and studied it since then, that when the Spartans, the males, would go to war, go to battle, the females, who held a high role within their society, would basically say to them as they left for battle, Aitan iepitas, which literally translates as with it or on it, implying return with your shield, victorious in battle, or on it, having died, given your all to the cause. There was no greater dishonour than returning from battle alive, but without the shield, implying that they'd fled the field of battle.
Gotcha.
So when I first was taught that, it resonated deep inside me. Even at that young age, when I don't think anybody's freely going there looking for inspiration. It's especially at that age with school, it can become a bit of a chore. But as soon as I heard that, it struck a chord within me. And I think that's very much down to my own personality. And obviously you learn a little bit more about it. Then you come across the Battle of Thermopylae. It's been popularised with the film 300.
Yes, which was a graphic novel. First of all, Frank Miller, the amazing Frank Miller, yep.
Although just for the record, Spartan Performance existed before the film came out.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people in the early days, it's after the film. And I said, well, kind of, but not. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, coming back to it, so I turn Epitaph with her on it, and the whole ethos, the whole warrior ethos, I just fell in love with that. And obviously studied a great deal more A-level, studied at a degree level as well, and it fascinated me. But then, and it didn't dawn on me straight away, but when I got into business, when I had Spartan, I found myself in a unique position at a certain point. Spartan was fairly new, 1 or 2 years, and that's when my competitive strongman career was at the height of its, whatever level of success you want to class it as. So I'd won the Brits twice. I was competing, so I was flying around the world, competing internationally at the World Naturals.
Very good, yeah.
So A level of competition. So I was having to set up a business, set up a gym, try to make it a business, as opposed to just a money drain. Get that to become successful, become a successful athlete, and then it kind of just revisited back down onto it, that phrase. And for me personally, and I feel like I'm drifting off your question here, but I'm going to try and drift back. It is essential for me, but it's the way that I translate it and interpret it for myself. No, I'm not going off to battle, in which case I'm either going to live or die. I'm not going to have to go into hand-to-hand combat. I'm not going to go into Mortal Kombat. I'm privileged enough to be born in the right century, the right decade.
To avoid that with...
1,000%.
Yeah.
So, no, of course, I don't feel like I'm a soldier going off to battle. But I love the fact of giving your absolute everything in the pursuit of a goal. Yeah? So you either return victorious, you either achieve your goal, or you return on it. Now, I don't have to die in the pursuit of a general business goal or anything like that. But it's a quality that I rarely see across the board, whether that's with clients that work with us or people that I may consult with, or just in general day-to-day life. Hard work, long-term hard work, seeing something through. I don't see many people with those qualities.
Would you also say it's important, as they say, to fail fast? So give you maximum effort at something, but then have the thought to think, this isn't working. I've tried my hardest. Should I fail now with this, and should I move on to another?
There's nothing wrong with failing. But first, you have to try incredibly hard. And my argument would be that it's like, I didn't come up with this, I forget who the quote comes from, but the harder I work, the luckier I get. It tends to be like that.
Yeah.
And that's basically how I translated it to myself. In business, the harder I worked, when I first started out, I went and mentored in the US. The guy called Joe DeFranco. He had a warehouse type facility, was incredibly successful, was already world renowned at the time. And I spent a lot of time with him, numerous visits, and there's various things that stuck with me. But one of the things that struck a chord with me was his advice was that you have to outwork your competition. He wasn't the most academically gifted when it came to, so he didn't go to the most reputable university or college in the US. So there would be other coaches with equal or better knowledge than him. Other coaches with bigger and better facilities than, bigger facilities, not necessarily better. And those were out of his control. But what was in his control was how hard that he worked, that he hustled. They use the term hustle a lot over in
Yes, yeah.
And it was basically outworking your competition. And again, I can bring that back to me. So if I turn out Epitaph, if I give my all to something, it's very rare that I'm not successful within that. Now, that's me personally, so that's my interpretation of it, despite the fact that I'm totally in love with the romanticized version of 300 ripped bodybuilders tooting off to fight 6 billion Persians, you know, and it's not quite the Hollywood film. But I do like that romantic, that warrior ideal. But in my own personal life, in my professional life, in my athletic endeavours, the harder I work, the better my results seem to come. So for me, the I-10 test is massive, and it's tattooed down my spine. It's the motto of the gym. It's on the gym's clothing, etc., and that's something there. Is it attainable?
So your average, I don't mean to be disparaging here at all, house husband, housewife, you know, in their line of work, or in, you know, so I've had scaffolding put up today. The gentleman, the very, you know, I couldn't ever do that, but the gentleman were doing that. You know, my belief is, I'm very similar to you, that if I'm going to be a scaffolder, I'm going to put up the best bloody scaffold in the world, you know. But there is a motivational aspect as well. You know, to be able to give your maximum, you've got to be passionate about what you do. So how do we cross the line to kind of...
Well, it depends. It depends. Yes, it's nice to be passionate about certain things, but other things just need to be done.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
100%.
I'm not passionate about paying my mortgage. Right. I'm not passionate. Right? I'm not.
Yeah.
Right. But the bills have to be paid. I am far from passionate about paying the rent on the facility that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Or the business rates. That is not a passion of mine. Right. But they have to be paid.
Necessity. Yeah.
Necessity comes into play there.
Yeah.
So with some things, and I can go right across the spectrum of life, some things for me, and I'll admit this is, you have to understand my personality, I'm a very black and white character. I do see things fairly simply, or I break them down fairly simply. But some things just have to be done. Right? There's just some ways you have to behave, and some things have to be done. In which case, I stand a far better chance of getting those things done that have to be done if I was to give my all to it. So in the case of the mortgage, etc., well, then I have to put into business. You know, the more successful I want to become, the harder that I have to work. It doesn't have to be obtainable. Nobody has to literally push themselves to the point of death. That would be interpreting it and taking it too far. But I've met very few people, or even heard of very few people, that I would say are maximising their potential or maximising their work ethic. Like you said, you would never be a great scaffolder. But necessity dictated it, and for whatever reason, that's your ability to put up scaffolding and run a scaffolding business, to put food on the table for your family, for the kids. Would you find a way?
I would. I think sociologists or social geography, I think it's Boiserop's theory, necessity breeds invention, you know, and you know, that's got the human race through a lot of things. And you're right, if I absolutely had to do something of that ilk, I'd certainly would put my maximum effort into it, probably without passion. But maybe the passion would come from the drive to, like you say, pay the mortgage, to put food on the table.
Of course. And I can understand that's a bigger motivational factor for other people.
Yeah.
Some things just require hard work.
Yeah.
And it's just a quality that I see lacking. And obviously, I'm also biased because look at my environment. I've spent the majority of the last 12, 13 years inside Spartan Performance, training clients. And what do? It's not magic. We're not reinventing the wheel here. It's not some sort of high science or anything else like that. It really isn't. Some people might pretend it. Influencers, you see all that fucking nonsense. They've got the secret. There is no secret. Really, really simple.
10 life hacks.
Hard work.
Yeah.
Consistent hard work.
But people want a short fix, though, don't they? They don't want to do...
Everyone wants a quick fix.
Yeah.
You know, we're in the world with a quick fix, the 5-minute abs, the 2 minutes this, and things like that. And granted, some things can be achieved quicker than others. But regardless, if you get to achieve anything, I could argue, say, worth achieving, is going to require some sacrifice in time, effort, dedication. And sometimes it's just about just getting your nose down and doing the work. Slogging it out. It doesn't always have to be a slog. It doesn't always have to be something that you don't enjoy. But sometimes you just have, you know, yes, you're about necessity breeds that invention, that creativity. Great, you could have that inspiration. But other times you've just got to get the job done.
Now that's the difference between motivation and determination, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
if you're determined to do something, you don't need to be motivated because you.
We
you'll
use
get
this
up
in
and
the
do
gym
it.
setting an awful lot, and I certainly didn't come up with this. I've obviously read or heard of it from somebody else saying I've ripped it off them. But you always hear about motivation. There's motivation and discipline. And I did debate getting these two words put up on the gym wall. I honestly did debate it. Motivation is wonderful, but it's fleeting.
Fleeting, yeah.
It's like and I don't really buy into the whole January, everyone, new year, new me, because that's not really how gym memberships work. Or not strictly speaking, but, you know, motivation. I'll join the gym in January, and then by the end of January, motivation is gone. Is it normally dry January or something, or whatever?
Yeah.
Motivation is great, and we will all have it at some point to greater degrees than not for others. But it's the discipline that counts. It's the discipline, because motivation is finite. It does run out. It's kind of like a sparkler, for want of a better analogy. When that sparkler goes out, motivation is going to get you through it. It's the discipline to keep putting in the work, to keep doing the work when motivation isn't there. That's how we achieve those things. You're trying to tell me that, and again, you know, it's probably maybe a poor example because I'm not too well versed on the current activities within the Olympics, but you've got Olympians that have been working for 4 years, if not more so. You're trying to tell me that every single day, every single workout, every single rehab session, technique session within the last 4 years, and especially over the last year and a half, when they didn't know what was going to be happening, they were motivated every single time. You know? Or is it a case of discipline kicking in? So you're right. Motivation, discipline. Motivation's awesome, and part of my job is to help with that motivation to an extent with people. But it doesn't matter who you are, how motivated you are, how motivating that somebody is around you. You can have David Goggins and C.T. Fletcher in both ears.
He'd motivate me.
But that motivation will peter out at some point, and what is there? Discipline. That's what takes over. And maybe that's when, you know, the whole eye tie and eye test thing comes back to me. It's genuinely served me incredibly well because I've found, you know what it's like. You've had a hard week. It's a crazy week. Do you really want to be getting that session in on the Saturday? You know, you've got commitments, family things, and all those things, but you've got that goal. What gets you to turn in for that session? To do the things that others won't. And for me, whether it was business, whether it was in sport or whatever, success leaves clues. I'm a big fan. That's guided me an awful lot in my career in business. I mentioned that I went to the US. Why did I go to the US? Why did I go to this individual? It was pretty straightforward. They were doing the things that really inspired me when I saw. And I looked at all those that were doing it, because I didn't actually have a sports science background at university. I came with a different degree. So I also need to get qualified as well as, you know, train and get big biceps. You've got to have some sort of knowledge behind you. What I do, success leaves clues. I looked at all those people that were achieving and doing the things that I aspired to be able to deliver for clients, and I looked at the one common denominator between them. Because many of them had different backgrounds, but they all, as an example, had an NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, certification, the Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. So they were CSCS certified through the NSCA. And I know it's like a bit of a strange example, but you can translate that across the board. Success leaves clues. And for me, the most successful people that I know also tend to be the hardest workers. I'm not a huge
success leaves clues.
Of course it is. I'm not a huge football fan. But I do love the example, whether it's fair or not, I'm not too sure, of Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney, who both were brought into Manchester United roughly the same time, same age. Look what they've done with their gifts. And then there's Ronaldo, like 35, 36, was not the top goal scorer at the last, you know.
Well, I don't profess to know anything.
I believe that he's still achieving to the highest possible level, if not the highest level, at an age where, you know, most are retired and gone, you know. And then you look at what he's doing, there's no stone left unturned, whether that's in physical preparation, nutritional preparation. Success leaves clues. And no doubt he's immensely talented. But the most talented people still work the hardest.
So, Jack, you mentioned briefly there about your education, and understand you did, correct me if I'm wrong here, ancient history. Studied ancient history, Latin and Greek. Now, aside from the 300 and the Spartans, is there any other historical figures maybe Marcus Aurelius or anyone not modern that you would look to or have looked to their philosophies at all, aside from the ancient Greeks?
Right.
Any
Because the first one
leaders
would have there's an awful lot to choose from. You mentioned Marcus Aurelius.
Yeah.
You could look at anything from ancient Rome, but I was a little bit of a sucker for a gentleman called Pericles.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, that's ancient Greece, and he was pretty much around at the golden age of Greek democracy, heavily involved in Greek democracy. He was a great public speaker, a great orator. Didn't mind getting his hands into battle either in the Peloponnesian Wars.
You can pick another Greek.
No, because that, to be honest, it's like you could read anything. I mean, I was a massive fan of Homer in the Iliad, which, again, it's not strictly speaking, verbatim history or anything else like that, but, and the writings of Homer, they've got to be there with, I would consider them one book. I know there's like two parts, the Iliad and the Odyssey, but they're like some of my favourite books.
What about ancient Roman philosophy? I mean, Socrates. Do you take it?
You can't argue with that, especially. It's almost like they had it all boxed off so many years ago,
right? Yeah,
so many centuries ago.
Yeah.
Whether that's from the whole physical side of things, again, I forget who the quote's attributed to. We can edit this in later.
Yeah.
But it's a man's responsibility to optimize their physical culture, to basically become as physical as they possibly can. You've got democracy.
As well as the mind.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah.
They were doing all those things.
Yeah.
If anything, it's like we're going backwards. It's like we're regressing. I find I'm in a society where too many people take a great deal of pleasure in not knowing the answer to something.
Yes, ignorance. Not even. I don't even think ignorance. It's. Do you know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is? So the Dunning-Kruger effect is I know this much about a subject, right? And I think the total sum of all of the information that's in this subject is this big.
Okay.
Therefore, I know 90% of this subject. When really the subject is this big. So I think maybe modern times it's not ignorance, it's just people think they know it all. They don't know what they don't know. Does that make sense? So would you some
do, and it's like weird. I mean, Christ, I'm not that old. So
well, I'm older than you,
and I never tell the truth about my age. So,
so we'll never know.
I think I've been 30.
We'll never know.
30 for 7 years now.
Keep talking. Now I'm going to move this light a little bit.
It's quite all right. Yeah. It's. I find. I'm almost like I'm stumped for words. I don't want to say like it's an ignorance thing or anything like that. There's just a great deal of people today seem, whether they do or not, maybe a different matter, but seem to me, and bear in mind, again, in our line of work, we do an awful lot of charitable work with a lot of local schools, a lot of local youths as well. So I'm well exposed to the 11 to 16-year-old bracket, whether it's through them or whether through the schools, and ask any of them about Winston Churchill. I don't know, I'm a fan of history, not necessarily just because I study. I think it's very important that we know about history. If you don't understand your past, then how can you ever potentially have a better future?
You're doomed to repeat the mistakes.
Well,
yes.
Are we not? Are we not? It's like George Orwell had it again. Yeah. He just wrote the script a good while back. So I don't know. It's maybe I'm getting out of my way a little bit here.
No, that's okay. So, I mean, we touched a little bit about, or you yourself did, about your work in America. I myself spent a little bit of time there as well. And I've worked in a lot of places, but America was unique to me. You mentioned also the hustle.
Yes.
I think that is very uniquely American. I mean, I have seen it in other cultures, but they have a very unique style of hustle. Like, I've got to make $1 out of 25 cents today. That's it, and it's in the music, like hip hop culture. It's in old time jazz, and it very much about making something of yourself. And the old cliche is the American dream. So if you could give us a little background how you got there, but like to America physically, but also what do you think, you've trained with people there, you've trained with people here. What are the differences? What are, in clientele, I guess?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Well, how did I get there? So at some point I developed this ambition to make a gym, owning a gym, a reality. But I wanted to be more than a gym. So what Spartan Performance is now, I had the idea of that's what I would like. Basically, nowhere in the UK seemed to have what I wanted to do personally, what I wanted to offer. And all of the authorities that I was looking to that were delivering such things that inspired me were US-based coaches. And one that I came across was a guy called Joe Franco. He'd put some articles out on an online magazine called T Nation. And there's a couple of his articles that, again, they resonated with me. I'm a big fan of Brooks Kubik and his book Dinosaur Training. Well worth checking out.
Okay.
Basically about physical culture in the 1800s, 1900s, etc. With the old-time strongmen.
Strongmen, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that type of training, lifting kegs, lifting thick axles, sandbags, things like that, that's always appealed to me, and quite possibly why I then pursued strongman as a sport.
Yeah.
But that was like my style of training, what I loved, long before it was ever going to be a profession and long before it was going to be a sport. But ultimately I came across Joe Franco, loved the articles that he was putting out there. He was working with predominantly high school, college-based athletes and NFL athletes. The training looked fantastic. The logic that was being relayed in the articles looked pretty awesome. So when it became closer and closer to wanting to actually make a career out of owning my own performance facility, gym, or something along those lines, I was following him and many others, closely. But there was an opportunity just came up to go and mentor with him, basically. I think it was either a YouTube video, it might have just been a post on a website.
Right.
This was like back in 2007, 2008.
Yeah.
And it was basically to fly out to New Jersey, and basically you would live there, for want of a better word.
You'd been to America before?
I'd been incredibly spoiled.
Right,
My grandparents had me all over the world.
Awesome.
And I first went to America in like 88, 89.
Yeah.
And I'd been back 2-3 times per year ever since. So I'd been to America an awful lot, for vacation purposes.
Yeah.
But that was it.
So you had an idea of the culture.
Absolutely. I loved it.
You weren't a concert man in New York as the expression.
Not quite, although I did happen, it was in New Jersey where Franco was based. In fact, I was only a couple of flights behind Sully, landing on the Hudson.
Okay.
And I'm not a great flyer anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was probably not the best time to be landing in Newark, New Jersey, and I didn't take a coat. Yeah, so that's how world-wise I was. I didn't take a coat in it was January.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the opportunity for a mentorship came up. Basically, I applied, wrote an email. I still have that email to this day. Came back, went through an application process, was accepted, for want of a better word. There was myself and I believe like 5 or 6 other coaches, some from Canada.
What was that moment like when you got the email? Was your mom there? Were you?
I was by myself. I actually had Spartan up and running at the time. It started to run in some capacity. So it was a Sunday and I was working. It was like a Sunday afternoon, evening, I was working. And the email came through from the States. And it was, I won't lie, it was awesome. And I was a huge fan of what he was doing. I don't know how many people applied, although if we have a look at his success now, I can imagine a fair few did apply. Yeah. But it was great, because ultimately if you want to, be accepted onto something, and I want to, I don't want to be rejected. Let's put it that way. And I also thought that I was, if not the perfect, but a very good candidate to go out there and make the most of the opportunity.
Good mindset. Yeah.
So flew out there and basically stay there. So you get to the facility first thing in the morning. You can observe what's going on in the facility. It's a private facility. So it's not like a gym with gym memberships. It's a private facility where Joe and his team would basically train clients, and the vast majority of them were either professional athletes, collegiate high school athletes, or in the lower sort of like school ages, all pursuing some form of observe how they're interacting with the clients. Then you can get involved with coaching with sessions, picking brains of obviously DeFranco, then getting coached off them. So basically I stayed there for a period of time. You're there, you're cleaning the gym and things like that. That wasn't a prerequisite of the mentorship, but ultimately you're just there. Not necessarily to just be a fly on the wall, but you're basically there from morning till night, which is what he was there.
Like a kind of excuse the expression, but like a dojo sensei arrangement. Yeah.
To me, that's what a mentorship is.
Yeah.
You go across there, paid some damn good money to get onto it.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay the money to get over there. My grandfather, actually, because I had no money, he helped me get over there in terms of the flight and the accommodation. And that was my first exposure to getting across there. So basically put myself out there applying, getting accepted, and then do my very best to make the most of the opportunity whilst I was there. So that's how I got there. In terms of the differences, the most stark difference with pretty much what generalization here.
That's fine.
Over there it's can do, over here it's can't do, won't do. Right? That's a very broad generalization, so we can go into that in a little bit more depth. When I was at the Francos, they were coaching flat out from first thing in the morning to last thing in the evening, groups of all ages, etc. The queues of parents coming into reception didn't have a receptionist, and all they did is they came in and opened up the checkbook. Where do I sign? What is it going to take to get my child onto your program so that they can make the NFL? Make the NBA, make whatever it was. And these were coming in at 11 and 12 and 13 and 14. The attitudes from the parents towards their children coming into a private strength training facility, they saw the value in that. They saw the value in the importance of not only just physical culture, sound nutritional practices, but strength training to get them or to help them become better athletes. And you know yourself, if you've been in the States, if you go to a high school and then you go and watch a football game, and the stadium is more impressive than what St. James's Park used to be.
Yeah.
You know, the Americans put everything into sport and excellence. And that's right the way through the culture. And I'm not saying that that's every, because you could always go to a fast food shop. Of course, the culture is a lot more diverse than that. But what I was exposed to in New Jersey is very much in New York. It's not like this affluent area or anything else. There are affluent areas within
Beautiful
it.
state, though, the Garden State.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Spent some time driving up to the Catskills.
Yeah.
Etc. But that was the big difference to me. I couldn't believe it. So because what I wanted to do was, okay, so you've got this great gym, you've got the facility, how do you get the business? He couldn't tell, back then, he wouldn't have been able to say to me, okay, this is how you crack your marketing. This is where you do your leaflet drop back in the day, you know. They were kicking the door down. Yeah?
Right,
and that
right.
culture is massively different to what I've experienced over here. Because obviously I wanted to replicate the training, the successes, and deliver that. And I went out of my way to approach local football clubs because I started small. Obviously I worked my way up to the professional level. I remember going to Concert Rugby Club, and I took pre-season once, and I was looking to basically take over pre-season for absolutely nothing. But it would have to be to a certain standard. But
They're still with you today, aren't the Concert Rugby
in a guise, but it was rejected back then. It was rejected back then because at the same time, I was approaching it from the mindset that we want to be the best athletes that we can be. And again, I did a 2-year project back in 2010 to 2012 with a group of Concert Rugby Club players. It was free training for 2 years for them. They were building up to go to a tour to the US. Obviously the bigger, stronger, faster players. Potentially not as skilled, but physically they were going to be all over them. And I've been exposed easily now, thousands within the Northeast of local parents, and the vast majority, it's a challenge. You have to convince them, A, to get out the car and even come into the gym in the first place. And then we're not going to turn them into the Hulk. We're not going to sell them steroids. Or even, it might be pretty beneficial if your son and daughter actually has breakfast, doesn't just have a Snickers for lunch, and then have some waffles for tea.
So
go for a
where does that come from? Where's the genesis of that here? Is it that, my feeling from coming back is that here in the UK, this phrase, I know it's an awful phrase, but this nanny state that, we have a health system here. People complain that they have to get free paracetamol through the NHS. In America, there's no net. There's no safety net. If you don't have that hustle we talked about, do you think that's an element of it? That
it's got to be. The healthcare system's the pros and cons both ways, and I think
it's a great thing.
I damn sure wouldn't want to pay the medical fees over in the States.
Yeah.
But just for me, what I was exposed to within the setting, the environment that I was in, it was very much, it was a can-do from the coaches. And their attitude, like I said, was to work the competitions. They will hustle. But by that, that meant getting free information out on basic websites, finding forums, spreading free information that would then attract people to coming in there, doing free seminars, going to local sports clubs. It's all free, but it's at that hustle. You know? Was it Field of Dreams, Kevin Costner? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
It's almost like the complete opposite of that. You've got to get them through the door there first. And again, you outwork that competition. And they all seemed, at least the ones that I was exposed to, and bear in mind, I mentioned there was 6 others on the mentorship, and they came from all around the United States and Canada, and they all had the same ethos. Yeah, because a private strength training facility, that was even a fairly novel thing within the States back then. And even now, it's a novelty, at least from a successful business standpoint.
Yeah.
There's plenty of gyms and warehouses now, but there's a big difference between that and a successful business. It was quite the novelty, you know, because it was normally the sports teams have got multi-million-dollar gyms.
Got their own facilities.
Exactly right. A high school gym in America is better than anything you can find in the UK anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I dreamed to win the lottery to be able to afford to kit my gym out like the average high school in America can. But it was just that attitude.
Is that a funding issue then? Maybe for schools? Do you think sport is underfunded in this country?
Yes, but you could argue that many other things are underfunded. But yes,
Fair
1,000%. The Americans want success in something, so they'll put everything within it. Look at how they're improving with rugby. Initially, they never played rugby. They were the world champions of American football, and they could only play it. And then they got into rugby, and it was again they were getting beaten. But ultimately, they have the biggest, strongest, most explosive athletes. And then if they need to learn the skills, etc., well, they will put the money in to get the infrastructure, to get the coaches. I know plenty of UK-based coaches, Australian, New Zealand coaches who've been basically taken over to America to teach us how to play the game.
And do you think it's a diversity of sport there makes a big difference? Because if you want to do lacrosse, basketball, American football, baseball,
Anything.
ice hockey,
Golf, we know golf was coming across there.
tennis.
The therapist at our gym, Andy Thurwell, he went to America on a swimming scholarship.
Swimming.
He's one of the best swimmers in the UK, ended up in America, swimming scholarship.
So, a bit of a controversial question for you. Do you think football is the guerrilla sport here, the alpha sport that takes away from all of the other members of the,
Well, they're certainly not
sports
gorillas
pack?
and they're certainly not alphas, but it does get the
Not-
vast majority
not
of
the
the
athletes, but
attention
yes.
and the vast majority of the funding.
Yeah.
But again, that's coming out, I surmise, more so from the private sector. There's more TV money
Gotcha.
in for football.
Yeah.
But it is predominantly a football. When I went to normal state schools, it was football.
Yeah.
Then when I went to private school, it was rugby. There was no football there. They now play football.
I was kind of ostracised as a kid for not liking football.
Yeah.
You know, I like skating.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you wouldn't be ostracized for it in the States as well, you know, if not like in American football, but maybe the population density is something as well. You know, you have more people to take up more interest of different things. But so
To me, it's a culture that wants to be, in some capacity, they want to be the best. And therefore, if there's something, if they want to win the space race, then they'll put everything into it.
Right.
Even if it takes getting all the scientists from
Right.
whatever it takes to win in whatever endeavour they want to get at, they will put the money and the infrastructure behind it.
So what will you change here then to make us more hustle orientated? What does it start at it obviously starts at the parents, everything does, but what would you give if you could?
I don't know about giving, but I mean, it was easier for me to adopt that because I was self-employed.
Right.
I was starting a business.
Yeah.
In which case, you need those qualities. You need that attitude. You need those ambitions. You need that work ethic because nothing is going to be given.
So I think maybe what we're saying here ultimately is less of a safety net is sometimes better.
It certainly served me very well.
Yeah. Okay.
It served me very well. I don't think that I would have gotten out of the early days if I had a get out of jail free card. For me, it was make or break. And in my example, in my circumstances, in my environment at that time, that worked wonders for me.
So back in them early days, Jack, you've now created a world-class facility, as I would say you have. But when you were looking for premises in particular, and in this area, in the northeast of England. What were some of the challenges you faced looking for premises?
Okay. The first challenge was actually to be even accepted by Durham County Council planning to inhabit a warehouse.
So legislative challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. Where we were previously was Linden Park. So that's the current premises, the one before. That's like the newest build on the industrial estate. So I remember when Linden Park was first getting built, and there was big billboards up leasing warehouse premises. And obviously I had aspirations with looking at what they're doing in the States.
Right.
That's what I wanted.
Right.
Gyms were always on a high street or something like that. So I reached out and I was rejected for the better part of a year.
Yeah. And what was the application process?
Well, very straightforward. You would just
okay.
simply phone up, the leasing agent, in this case Whittle Jones. Yeah, I'm very keen to take one of the properties.
So it wasn't laborious to
No, it was very straightforward, but all the roadblock was they would have planning permission to be like light industrial use.
Right.
And a gym would require a different planning permission. And it was rejected, basically said that'll never happen. And that was for a year. And they all sat empty for a year. Linden Park, the entire place where Screwfix, that was empty for a year. And just by luck, and I was, my wits' end, because I was planning for a while, and I just drove past one day, I'd had some bad news, just kind of evaluating where we were going to go, and I thought, fuck it. And I just called them again, and this time the agent was like, yeah, I can come down and meet you tomorrow. So something must have changed. But even then, that was the owners of the estate. They were willing to speak to me about leasing it. You still have to go through planning, it's all subject, and that is what I would consider to be, not necessarily it's a nightmare. So case in point, the first unit that we had was 300,000 square feet. And that was built to handle heavy industrial machinery where they build aeroplanes, etc. I wanted to put a gym into it, so I had to pay the council £500 for them to consider me to be able to put rubber mats on the floor and dumbbells with rubber handles, and they had to analyse all of the safety. And I even tried to meet with them, and I was like, well, I don't understand. Well, it's a highways concern. Well, no, it's not, because it's on a private industrial estate. So there is no highways. Well, it's a water surface runoff issue. No, it's not. That's Northumbria Water. That's already taken care of. They're all part of it. Well, it's a parking problem. It's an enormous industrial estate. It's already there. Sound pollution for the neighbours. On an industrial estate, they build aeroplanes 24 hours a day. There are no neighbours. Blah, blah, blah. I remember the person came out, opened the door. Yeah, that'll be fine. Signed. Cost me £500. And every single time I've changed premises, you have to go through that. And it just gets more and more expensive. And so that's your first major hurdle, because they can reject that, and that's it. If they reject that, you can't do it. And again, there was other things put in place. So I consider myself a small business when I started. There was myself, with no business plan, no clientele, no income, and some debt. So I thought, well, that's pretty goddamn small. So I applied for small business rate relief, because it's not necessarily the rent of a facility that will make or break you, it's the business rates.
Yes.
And this is a massive gripe of mine. So for business rates, it was basically working out at close to £1,000 a month for business rates, my premises. And I was like, sorry, and again...
You had rent on top of that.
Oh, you got your rent. And bear in mind, with your rent, then you've got your insurance, your maintenance rent that looks after the building, the security of the place, looks after the repair of the car parks, the garden, everything, because it's a private estate you own. So you're paying for the upkeep of that, you're paying for the rent of the facility. Then you get business rates. So then I finally got a meeting and said, well, what am I paying for? And I'm paying £1,000 a month. And you don't even get a bin. If I wanted a wheelie bin, so the bin that you've got outside, that would be, at the time it was £840 a year. They would empty it once per week, but I could only have 3 bin bags in it. All right? So I wasn't getting my bins taken away. They don't do anything. They don't do any highway, road maintenance. There's nothing the local authority does to maintain what that is. It's private land, privately maintained. £1,000 a month. But there was a small business rate relief, and I think that gave you 75% off. So I applied for it. And I was rejected. And I said, well, how did I not qualify? There is just me. And they said, well, it's based on your rateable value. So the size of your premises per square foot. And basically, anything that has a rateable value of £18,000 and above is classed as a large business. Anything that has a rateable value of £18,000 and under is a small business. irrespective of how many staff or anything like that. Okay, I totally get it. So what's the rateable value of my place? £18,001. Unit 2B, Linden Park. I said, wow. And I said, by any chance, did your good selves come up with the rateable value system? Yes. What can I do? And that nearly killed me. And that is it's really hampered many a business. It's a big challenge. So again, trying to be a little bit more succinct for you. Getting through the initial planning stages can be a pain because you're basically paying, you're just giving away money.
If you'd have known that ahead of time, would it have helped? Like if you'd have picked a 16,000 facility rather than a...
Potentially from the rate side of things, you'd still have the hoops to jump through when it came
for everything else, yeah, but you would have got the...
Then you're looking at the size of the facility. You got now 300,000 square foot or 18,000 sounds, quite big. It wasn't. It fills up pretty quickly. Now, I would argue that in hindsight, I started too big. I could have probably started with a slightly smaller facility, but at the same time, the growth that I envisaged, and thankfully it paid off, within 3, 6, and 9 months post-opening, we would have needed that place within that period of time anyway. Gotcha. So yes, we could have went small, but then we couldn't have opened the business that I wanted to, which wasn't a private training facility. That was as you have it now, which is open 90, 100 hours a week, and you can come and go as you please. You've got a full gym to use as well as have that private training. So potentially we could have went a little bit smaller, but that would have hampered the ability for us to basically serve a large enough gym membership base where you're getting enough gym memberships to contribute towards your costs.
So you did have a bit of a business plan. You're thinking ahead of, I need...
To an extent,
yes,
it wasn't... But I wouldn't advise anybody to have the plan that I had.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I identified the best premises that I could gamble on.
Gotcha.
So I thought, okay, right, this is how much the premises is going to cost. Typically, you can negotiate 1 to 3 months rent-free.
Yeah.
3 to 6 months, maybe more at a reduced rate, depending on the area and the circumstances. And that's pretty much what it boiled down to me. I knew how long I didn't have to pay rent, and I knew how long it was 50%. So I had a period of time from opening up, which was the beginning of January, to a certain point down in the year before X number of pounds would kick in. But then you've got to kit it out as well. And I had no money, no credit, like really poor credit rating.
Well, I was just going to ask you about startup capital, and it's the nice segue actually. And a lot of people try to fund their own ideas, not only in the fitness industry but entrepreneurs in general. So, what would you be advice to people, not just in your industry, but should you fund from cash flow? Should you have maybe got a smaller facility and then move forward from there? Or
I would say more so from if you don't have the cash flow, then it's not a case where you should fund from cash flow if you don't have the cash flow. The smaller facility, yes. So I can only speak within the industry that I'm in.
Sure, please.
So my advice to any sort of potential gym owner, and bear in mind I've seen many come and go locally and regionally in the time that I've been here. I believe I was the first warehouse-style gym in the United Kingdom. I'm pretty firm on that one there. I'm pretty sure I was the first one. And I've seen many come and go.
Jack, can I just stop you there? Yes, we're getting there.
That elusive sunlight that rarely ever comes up here.
Bloody sun.
When do we ever hear that up here?
It just knew we were filming this, that's what. It gets quite hot in here as well, so I apologise.
I think I love living in the sauna, so I'm not going to complain of the heat.
That
looks far better.
Is that better?
That looks great.
Look at this one, shows. I was tempted to just use 2 lights, but then this natural light was so... Do you want a little top up while we're there?
By all means, thank you. But my advice, are you okay with that?
Let's have a look. Where's that coming from?
But it was rare as a lunar eclipse. Too much sunlight
right. Here. Let me ask you that question again, if that's all right.
Certainly.
Yeah. So before we were rudely interrupted by the rare sunlight that we have here in Sonny Medemsley. Startup capital. We was just asking the question that many people make mistakes when they're trying to fund their ideas. Do you have any advice for those people, particularly as you mentioned
within the gym industry?
Yeah.
I started too big.
Okay.
Though you could argue you have to identify the right size facility for yourself, your business plan, your ambitions, because you will be likely going leasehold, not freehold. So you're going to be leasing it, you're going to be a tenant, and you'll probably be tied into 3-5 years. I mean, if you're in there to 1 year, if it's renewing every 1 year, then I'd imagine it's going to be prohibitively expensive. But it's typically 3 to 5 years that you end up going into. So you're there for a little bit. Start small and have the ability to grow, but it also comes from the equipment. My initial equipment cost for Spartan Performance was £27,000.
Okay.
I know this because I flew down to Watson Gym Equipment and flew into Bath. They took me around their facility, their warehouse. They didn't make what we wanted, but they were the only company that came back to the UK and said, well, actually, if you help us design it, we will make what you need. And I'm eternally grateful for the fact that when we kind of narrowed it down to what we wanted to open with, they gave me a pretty awesome, or the owner, Simon Watson, so thank you, Simon, gave me a pretty awesome payment plan. Small amount up front, and then installments, interest-free. And
so little help, or not to say charity, but a little assistance along the way.
Well, I mean, ultimately, he had a price, and he got paid the price, and he was paid exactly on time, I mean,
of course.
But without that, it would have been very difficult. My credit rating was very poor. And then if I was to then get a loan for it, the repayments would have been higher. So I think I got, in fairness, I mean, I was doing a fair bit of work, helped them design a great range, the animal equipment range, etc. I don't think I gave equally, but I did contribute to the relationship and the deal. But ultimately, that helped. So that then meant, when I came back, I flew back up, then I was looking at, okay, so if we open, I have to pay this by this by that. And that's how my business plan started to build. Because it was a little bit difficult for me to come up with a business plan for the type of gym that I wanted, because it didn't exist in the UK. And I couldn't use the DeFranco model where you've got parents just queuing around the block.
Because as we've discussed.
Where do I sign, Mr. Lovett? You don't get that. And what we were bringing into concert was a completely different concept. Now, before I had my gym on the industrial estate, I was working out of a gym, Medemsley Road. Used to be ladies' first gym, and I was working out of that one. I remember the first week that opened, you know, talking about local community spirit.
Not there anymore?
It's not there anymore. No, that failed fairly quickly. But there's no gym there. There's been a gym subsequent. But I remember the first week that opened, every window in the building was put out through a random act of vandalism in a street that never gets vandalised. So thank you very much on that one there. That only instilled a greater work ethic. But coming from there, that business model wasn't what I was trying to achieve. That wasn't the type of gym that I wanted or anything else like that. So there was no business model other than, for me, the end of January, the end of March, whatever, this is what I need to be bringing in. Then obviously I had, well, this is my membership base, this is my coaching fees, these are all the adjuncts. You've got to have multiple revenue streams. You can't, in my mind, you can't just say, I'm going to open up with a membership and whatever gym's around the corner is £25 a month, so therefore I'm going to be £22 a month.
That's a race to the bottom, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what's going on right now. That's what's still 13 years later, that's what people do. Every time the gym in concert goes a bust and it comes back under another guise, they open up and all they do is undercut the gyms that are around them. And you're right, in my opinion, it is a race towards the bottom on that one there. So for me, come back with Watson, actually in hindsight, and even though I didn't have a lot of kit, remember I could only afford, the black mats we have on the gym floor. I could only afford 12. Fucking stable mats were £50 each. And I was like, shit. So I could only afford 12, and I was put them where I thought was the most important place. And if you ever look at initial pictures, the gym got more matted as the months went on.
Right, gotcha, yeah.
But in hindsight, we have a 45 raise on the current premises. I had 2 in the first one. I didn't need 2. I had a dumbbell range from 1 to 65 kilos. Didn't need that. It was nice to have them, but did I need them? I feel like I could have got equally as successful a result with maybe $5,000 less equipment.
I think that's the terminology is bootstrapping. You didn't bootstrap the business. You took a little bit extra than what
A little bit, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, nothing crazy. Because
Yeah.
the catch now, what you see is finance is available all over the place.
for machines and
Yeah,
stuff.
and that's what I see. So when places open up and they're opening up and they're 3 times the size, basically a new gym will open up and it's the same size as what we are now, and they'll have twice as much kit as what we've got now. And it's just leased. Yeah, and that's debt round the neck. What I started with, so basically after 6 months, from 6 months on in Spartan, I haven't owed a single penny on anything, bar the rent for the premises because it's a leasehold. Everything that we've ever had ever since then, so any single addition was simply paid for from money that was generated and then put back into the business, and that it continues to this day. You know how we reinvest? If we reinvest, that's money that we've generated. We own every single thing that we see, and that would be something that I would give people some advice to, because it's very easy to fall for the allure. And I'm sure if you go to Watson Gym Equipment now, they'll give you a great finance deal over X number of years and stuff like that. But if you fall behind, then all you have to do is go on Facebook and social media now, and there's so many different groups where gym equipment's for sale, especially with the horrendous circumstances, and that's no fault of any gym owners right now. But what are they doing? 6 months old, selling the kit, the gym's closed. Yeah, because they've had to adjust their business model to an extent. The income streams maybe changed slightly, but guess what? The rent still's got to be paid. The rent on the equipment, they don't give a shit about COVID. It's got to get paid. I started too big, a little bit. I got away with it. It wasn't too much of a gamble, though, because it wasn't that big. I had too much equipment, or more than I needed. I could have started with small, but then on the flip side, went about that necessity. I had to earn the business had to be making a certain amount by a certain date.
So that give you the drive.
Well, that was it. Because all that did is I'll just work it down, right? So we need 50 clients. I need 3 PTs. I need this, that, the other. That made me work. You know, putting 100-hour weeks in was nothing unusual for 3-4 years. I thrived on it. And obviously I've grown up a little bit since then. Learned the value of sleep for my own well-being and health, but also that you could be spending, you know, I work 100-hour weeks. The catch is I was working in the business, not on the business. And if you're working all the time in the business, then you're not progressing the business. And therefore the business suffered despite, you know, nobody outworks Jack. He hustles, he's in there Monday morning, he's through there. You know, there's a smarter way to do it. But again...
Say that phrase again, Jack. Go on.
Which phrase was
Working on the business, working in the business.
Again,
that's two separate things,
If
isn't
I
it?
say something that even sounds semi-pertinent, it's probably because somebody smarter than me came up in the first place.
That's fine. We can regurgitate that which is...
But ultimately, that's the catch, the pitfall that you've got to watch yourself falling into. You can spend all of your time working in the business. So at one point, I was pretty much the sole coach, but I was the business owner. I was the sole coach. We had memberships with programs, so I was the head of program. I was head of everything that we offered, every service that we offered.
Did you have the milkshakes and stuff? The protein shakes and
not initially.
That type? No, but so you weren't ordering stock as well and managing stock levels. And...
the only reason I didn't start it initially was because I couldn't kit out a kitchen to serve them in my initial budget, and I didn't have staffing where I could think, well, you know, we can have all the stock, but I had nobody to sell it.
Who's going to sell it? Yeah.
If I did, we would have started from day one. I've been heavily involved in supplements and supplement companies.
Yes.
On the side of things. So I was always a fan of that. I saw value for it. And as well as that, once I put the equipment in the initial rent, painted the building, well, then I had no money for stock anyway. But as soon as I was in a position to get stock, we started to bring it in. And obviously we've got a whole lot better at that over the years. Same with clothing and things like that. But I was working all of the time in the business. I was there watching it all the time. I was there coaching people all the time. And then when the gym was closed, so between 10 at night and say 12 at night, 1 o'clock in the morning, that's when I'm doing the programs for people. That was all in the business. There was no time spent for a period of time, me planning, well, where we're going to be in 3 months.
Business development.
Exactly right. And I had, my library was predominantly training books.
Right.
And it was books and DVDs back then. And then it's more so online courses and things like that. So everything was to be a better coach. There was nothing about being a better businessman. But then obviously you learn, and you learn fast. And I did learn I've seen mistakes from a very early stage. I referenced the gym that had the windows put out. So in theory, I was there to manage it, for want of a better word. And it was my monumentally disastrous advice not to do memberships and to do a standing order. So people could come there, they could take a membership out to a standing order. But as you well know, if there's no money in your bank account, the standing order doesn't come out. You're not in breach of contract, and there are no fines. Let's go back to my mortgage that I'm not particularly passionate about paying.
Who is?
And these are exact figures for you. And again, if you want to do a separate podcast on all the mistakes to make, I can give you 3 podcasts. If you didn't have to pay your mortgage, would you? You still keep your house. Nothing happens. You just don't pay it. There's no fines. You don't incur any charges. Would you pay it? Possibly. Possibly not.
Well, if I owned it at that point.
But let's say you had a month and, there's various bills, and you think, well, hang on, it's like £400 a month. I could do that £400 here. If I don't pay these, nothing's going to happen. We found that fast. On average, within a month, we worked with other staff there. We were chasing over 100 members on a monthly basis.
Comes a job in itself, I guess, trying to get money.
That's the last thing. And then one of the best things I learned in business was to get a third-party collection company. The company that you have your membership through now, I've been using them since 2008, and I've never looked back. I'm aware of my stature. I'm aware of what my demeanour looks like to some people. I want you to come to me because I'm a source of knowledge for training, coaching, nutrition, whatever, not Jack's the debt collector. So when I see you and I say, hey, Michael, how's it going? It's not, where's my money, Michael? We need to remove that from the business. But it's also that severely damaged that business by not having a guaranteed set income.
The cash flow, he couldn't pay that mortgage, couldn't.
No. So on the first monthly, when the standing orders were due, most people didn't pay them because they didn't have to. It was Thursday, and I'll sort you out next week, mate. It's like small town mentality. Catch is, mortgage on the building, need to be paid. British Gas weren't on the phone saying, busy weekend, Jack, we'll sort you out. And that was real trouble, so I learned that. So that was another thing. Make sure you have a third-party collections company, and you have very clear membership policies. Whether that's 12 months, whether it's weekly, it makes no difference. You've got to get the cash flow right, and you have to separate that.
From the businesses I've worked in, is like in a commercial role as well. I just mirror exactly what you're saying, because if I was a salesperson, I'm trying to sell to this business, then I also don't want to be the person that's chasing them for the cash. That should be the accounts department, right? So that separation between the two is absolutely necessary in business. I'm completely with you there.
You're using the term business.
Yeah.
There's having a gym and there's having a business. It's two very different things. I never just,
Which would you like to have? Would you like to have...
Right now, I want a business. I want a business because a business pays for itself. A business can run when I'm not on site there now, so I can come away, I can do that. Then you don't have a business.
But just hypothetically, say you're Dorian Yates, you're Ronnie Coleman, whatever. You've made a lot of money in bodybuilding, or you're Hatha Johnson, whatever, and you don't need to have a business. Would you have a gym for you and your mates? Would that be something you would rather do?
Right now, no.
Yeah.
At some point, I think I could see the allure if I was ever successful enough in business to facilitate having my own little home Spartan, then I would do. But right now my passions lie elsewhere for where I want to take the business, because anything that's the food on my table, basically my future and the future of my family, whatever that may entail, is directly correlated with what the business becomes. So I don't want to get rid of that. That being said, I don't know if you're aware, but we run a charitable arm of Spartan Performance, right? Community Amateur Sports Club. And that then breaks down the barriers of coaching fees, especially for youths, but in theory could be of all ages, but where price doesn't become an issue. So you can break down the barriers, because I see the profound benefits for physical training, good nutrition advice, just for society in general. That's something that I'd like to be able to develop a whole lot more.
That's really good to hear. We need more philanthropic businessmen, and particularly in your sector. I think you can make a real difference, because, the youth obesity I try to teach my kids, right, this has got protein in it, this has got carbohydrates in it, and I'm not saying I'm by no means perfect, but I don't think that's instilled in a lot of
it's not,
in
and
a lot of
I
children.
consult with a lot of advisory boards. Obviously, John O'Connor, I'm heavily involved with him. Health and wellbeing initiatives. We were actually looking at statistics, which was, I forget, I think it's years 6 and 7 for Derwentshire. 38% are classed as obese. And there's a reason why my gym's in concert. Part of it is because the rent is a little bit cheaper per square foot than elsewhere. But I want to improve my local community.
Good. Yeah.
I genuinely want people to have to travel to concert to receive the best gym, not have to drive to Newcastle, not have to drive to Durham. I want people to come there, but I also want the local community to benefit from that. Yes, I have a business. Yes, that business, in order to be a business, must be profitable. And I'm fine with that. I'm sleep comfortably at night with that because I believe that we over-deliver in the services that we charge for. But at the same time, you want to give back to your community. And I fully recognise, bear in mind that I came up with a wonderful upbringing, but far from auspicious. Money was scarce. Single parent household. I know what my mum had to do to earn terrible pittance in a call centre and things like that. Where we live, not many have the disposable income to potentially pay the top end of our professional rates. So what do I say? Tough luck? Of course not. I want to be able to make it accessible for all because of the youth obesity. Because of the obesity in general. And there's just so much good that we can do. So before I get this little private gym for me and my mates, which I would like to get at some point.
Yeah.
Right now, I want to push the business side of things because it's nowhere near its potential. And also, if I could then enhance that arm of it as well, then I'm ticking some boxes for goals.
You mentioned family earlier, and I know that just from hearing and the way you guys operate, and I know your team is also kind of the family. There's in some ways heads of the community we have over there at Spartan, and so you built a great team. If you had to onboard a new member of staff, what would be the top 3 personal qualities you would look for? If you had to onboard a new member of staff tomorrow, what would be the 3 qualities you would not look for? It doesn't have to be 3, but what would your qualities be, and what would they not be?
Well, with the hindsight of experience,
yes,
let's look at the things that I now look for. So if I'm hiring, I'm looking at attitude, top. Absolutely, attitude above everything, including qualifications. Professionalism and work ethic, and I'm going to put those in the same category because you only gave me 3 and I've got another one to put in there. But attitude, top. You can train pretty much everything else. You can't train somebody to have a better attitude. And I've learned that the hard way. So every quality that I look for, it's because I've experienced almost the polar opposite from people that I've employed. And I've had my fingers burned immeasurably. But you live and you learn. And now it's an attitude, right? You can learn skills. People could come with a first-class honours degree. They could have interned all over the place. But ultimately, to be a coach out of Spartan Performance, because we don't lease the PTs. They're all salaried coaches. They are part of Team Spartan. We teach the Spartan system of training, for want of a better word. Granted, there's grey areas within that where they can have their own interpretation and their own passions, etc. But ultimately, we teach a system. So as a client, when you get a program from us, you get a Spartan program. When you coach by a coach, you coach on that program. It's not a different program from a different coach. So regardless of the level of the coach coming into us, they then have to, on their onboarding, learn our system, learn our coaching cues, learn our values and things like that. That's an attitude thing, right? Because you can learn all these things, that's very easy, but I can't teach them the right attitude. Attitude first. Professionalism, that is sorely lacking, and I've seen that happen with those that I've unfortunately employed in the past.
In the youth, or
I'm talking about professional. I'm talking about adults that I've hired.
Yeah.
But as well as that, because I consult with gyms mainly around the United, and especially for business in the UK, done seminars outside the UK for coaching, but actually the business side of things within the UK. And I see just how they go on. Unprofessionalism is rife. Where our industry is not regulated in the slightest. You know, I'd be amazed if you could go to, say, another local gym and they had the required insurance. That reminds me, mine's up at the end of next week, so we need to renew ours. That came on there, so I better have mine, otherwise I'll be falling afoul of this. The required DBS checks if they're going to be working with children. The required first aid certificates. Whatever, it's an unregulated business. Professionalism is massive. But that's beyond that, that's how you conduct yourself. Well, you know, to me, on time is not, well, shift starts at 6 in the morning. Well, case in point, the gym opens at 6. They're not there at 6. They're there in before 6, getting the gym open, getting it set up and stuff like that. That's just part of the job. Gym closes tonight at 9 p.m. They don't finish at 9 p.m. Granted, I would like them home sooner rather than later, but there's professionalism. How do you conduct yourself around clients? In our industry, it's notorious for fraternizing with your clients. So easy. It's just one of those ones, you know what I mean? Gym instructor and stuff like that. Yeah, we're professional.
Almost a cliche.
It's a cliche, yeah.
Yeah.
We're professional across the board. Attitude, professionalism and work ethic, because to be successful within this business, you're going to have to work immensely hard. Even if you're not a business owner, you're still going to have to hustle. You're still going to have to constantly learn as well. Always sharpening your knife. Your knife can be never too sharp. So you've got to have those. And the third one would be communication. Let's say you've got the right attitude. Let's say you've got the right skills and your knife is like Crocodile Dundee's, sharp as hell. If you cannot communicate that to the client, then you cannot give a positive coaching experience. Wasn't really much of a fan of Shakespeare. That being said, Othello, this character, Iago. And again, around about the same time as when I was coming across 300, Battle of Thermopylae, I Tan Epitas, Iago, I am all things to all people. That's what he used to say. And again, that struck with me, because I would argue that we have to be Iago as coaches. They're not necessarily the same type of character, because he's a bit of a twat. But we have to be all things to all people, because we have such a broad range of demographic of clients. We have to be able to communicate, because our system is pretty much fixed in terms of the things that work.
Yeah.
You know, squat, push, pull, hinge, there's variations within that, but you have to be able to communicate. A coach has to be an excellent communicator to get that across. You know, some clients like a little bit of banter, they have this sort of attitude, others just, I want to be told A, B, and C, and let's get down to it. You basically got to change your personality almost. But it's all well and good knowing everything. If you then can't communicate it to the client so they can implement it, it's pointless. So the three things that I would look for: attitude, number one. If you don't have the right attitude, it's game over. That cannot be changed. Work ethic, to an extent, can be instilled, and that's when you look to the top. That's why I have to lead by example on that front. Work ethic, professionalism, slashed into one, and then finally the communication.
So in the interview process then, how do you gauge some of that? Do you have any key questions? Is it almost sometimes gym members that then show an interest, and you've watched them for a few months in the way that they work or
this
the way
is how
that
it
they're
works for us,
conducted?
and I would say by no means is it the finished article. Another thing, I believe this is from Alan Cosgrove, so I believe I'm stealing this from Alan. I probably stole a few other things.
Stand on the shoulders of giants.
Fire fast, hire slow. And in the past, I probably hired fast and fired slow.
Well, in Florida, where I used to reside, it was what you call a hire and fire state. So you could come in on Monday, you're sacked. And there could be, you know, legislation, whatnot afterwards, but there is no like warning system or anything that is here. So this is slightly off topic, but do you think sometimes that, and I'm going to sound, maybe, I don't know if this is going to sound really bad, but do you think employee rights are too strong here? Is that a topic of contention?
Well, it's not, that's not a topic of contention, but the way I see it, there are employee rights, and that's it. There are no employer rights.
Okay? Yeah.
So if from that you can infer that it's skewed for the employee, then yes, quite rightly. Yes. But anyway, what do I look for? Or how do we go about it?
Yeah.
So should we be hiring, then we're going to welcome an email. And the first thing I'll look at is how that email is punctuated and put together.
Okay.
I'll give you an example of one that came in, it's probably about a year ago, via my personal Facebook account.
Oh, okay.
Here, mate, are you hiring? Okay. Spelled as I'm enunciating right now. So, here, mate, are you hiring? Thanks. Yeah, no, we're not hiring. Okay. I'll take a close look at the email and see how it's put together. Base professionalism. The CV, I'm not particularly interested in the CV. I got this at GCSE, and I like going for walks and reading books and spending time with my family and all that shit. Right? Great if they put it together, because I'm interested how they put it together. Any thoughts? But ultimately, they have to sell to me initially why they're interested, not being a coach. Why do they want to be a coach at Spartan Performance? Why Spartan? And what can they bring to that team? I'm looking for that within the initial email.
So they should have done some background.
Holy shit, yeah. But
absolutely.
That's down the line, but
Yeah.
it should be clear at that point that there's just something. It doesn't have to be huge. I prefer succinct, one word instead of two. But please be punctuated. All right? Don't end with cheese, mate, or something like that. All right? Even though it's an email, I think there's a certain level
Absolutely.
that it needs to come from. I know it might sound a bit dickish, but it's not. It's the way I'll look at it. Then I'll freely admit I'll go straight onto social media and I'll stalk them. Okay, so I'll go onto the social media platform, and if all I see is personal as opposed to professional, that will impact my judgment, rightly or wrongly. We always used to have great parties wherever we're at in the world after the Strongman for 2-3 days in cities around the world. If you saw some of those pictures from there, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to hire me either. Okay? I get that completely. But ultimately, especially in this day and age, on your social media, you're going to be looked at and you're going to be judged.
Yeah.
All right? So I will look at that. Not too fine a detail, but you can kind of get the gist of what you're dealing with. And that wouldn't be a red cross straight away through somebody unless it was something absolutely absurd. Right?
Brings with it baggage, though.
Of course it does, but at the same time, as much as I said I'm a black and white character, I understand the world is made up of greys. And you need to be able to speak with people, get on. But long story short, they're the things I'll look at. We are rarely hiring, but we're always open for the right individual should they present themselves. I will then express that and basically explain what's available and invite them to come and have a meeting. In that meeting, it won't just be myself, but the other team members. Because the key thing is, I'm watching how they vibe with the other team members.
Right.
And I'm interested in their feedback. Because let's say it's all successful, our onboarding process is a success, they go through the internship, whatever it is, but at some point they're going to be starting work, they need to be working as part of a team. And I have turned down people, even applications on paper look really good and actually pretty damn good to speak to, because they just weren't team players. And I'll admit that I'm hamstrung. We're building a team. We're building a project here. Spartan is not a stepping stone. If it would be a stepping stone with somebody, I would rather pass on that individual. But ultimately, we'll have a little bit of a chat. At that initial chat, which comes with no obligation for us to, guarantee you an offer.
Of course.
I need to be able to hear why Spartan. What can they bring to the table? Still won't be asking them, what are you getting your GCSEs and real levels? They can tell me if they want. What can you do? We can also check them out from a physical standpoint. And that sounds, probably haven't explained myself well. As
What's
a coach,
important for you,
in my opinion, it is a coach is their own first client. How they're dressed, they're physically fit. They don't have to be Mr. Olympia or Miss Olympia or whatever it may be. But again, authenticity matters to me. Authenticity in our industry, we have to be able to lead by example. Do they lead by example? Speak with them, etc., and we look at that. If there's an opportunity, then typically it would then come down to an initial internship, mentorship, whatever you want to class it, a period of time where they would be learning from us. They would be giving us their, not too dissimilar to what I did at DeFranco's, although I fully well knew that there wasn't going to be a job there for me at the end of it. Or that's what I wasn't there for. But ultimately they're going
like a probation stage.
To an extent, but they're not working. Yeah, they're going to be on the gym floor. They can shadow me. They can shadow the coaches. And what we'll do is we'll come up with a syllabus. So over a period of time, they can experience every facet of what we teach. One-to-one training, rehabilitation, spend time with the physio, spend time in the clinic, the groups, the infernos, basically every type of client, every type of situation they get to shadow. But it's not like I would want them standing there. They can be as interactive as they want or not. And I will freely tell them, I'm more interested in how you interact with my clients. So if they were in there and it will happen in the future, because we are looking to bring somebody else on at some point, imagine we've got somebody and they don't speak to you after learning your name. So I'm going to say, Michael, this is Joanne. Joanne's going to be shadowing us for a little bit. You know, she's got aspirations to be a coach type of thing. I expect Joanne to know who Michael is and be able to say it. I'll be more interested in how Joanne converses with you, the communication side of things. But ultimately, we come up with a list of things that we would require from them. And, you know, yes, there's cleaning the toilets, cleaning the sauna, emptying the bins, all the stuff which you will see to an extent me doing. You know, I'm not above those things. Granted, the team do take care of the vast majority of it for me. I'm not going to sit there and say that I do all of those things, but it's not unusual for you to see me.
But that's what we said
Hoover.
before about being in the business and working on the business.
Yeah, I have many other commitments, but whilst I'm in the business, it's not a shock to see me with a Hoover in the hand.
For sure.
I'm not above being able to put the bin out. Things like that. They do those things, but as well as that, we then need to what can we teach them? You know, find that we have a staff manual. It's not too dissimilar what the book Spartan Strength is. It's our manual. They can learn. They can have private time with me. I'll explain every facet of what we do. That's going to be for a period of time. At the end of that, we'll sit down and there'll be an appraisal. There is still no guarantee of a job offer. They must give up their time, and basically they then get to show off their attitude, their professionalism, their work ethic, and their communication ability. All the while, we're giving as much back as possible. You know, they're not just coming in and saying, right, hoover the gym, polish the walls, and I'll see you tomorrow. They can learn as much or as little as they want. They have free access to me in every capacity that I teach. So if I'm doing online Zoom consults with other gyms, they can be sitting on with those right now. They could be learning every facet of the business. But obviously they need to learn the hard work and stuff. They'll see what it's like to open up at 6, across the board. When we get to that point, that's when the potential for a job offer would come from it. But again, I would look heavily to my team. I would want feedback from them because they're going to be the ones that are working together most of the time. And if a team member doesn't turn in, then the other ones suffer from it. We want that and things like that. So that's how we go about things. Did I always do it that way? No. But then any shortcut that I ever took cost me to some degree.
Right. I guess there's a fine line, isn't there, between a shortcut and a success. You know, you just said there, you know, I guess it's failing quickly, isn't it? You know, higher slow, but fire
I do
fast
now,
as
but in
well.
the past it was the other way around.
Sure, you got to learn from the mistakes.
You learn, and now it's fairly public knowledge, but I had 2 coaches, so it was myself and 2 coaches at Spartan, and they conspired behind my back to build another gym.
Right.
And bear in mind, nobody has to work for Spartan forever. And it's not a crime to have ambitions for your own gym. I had ambitions for my own. And I have a huge track record of supporting members who've opened up their own gyms. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's a right and wrong way to go about it. But ultimately, whilst being under my employment, without consulting with me, they were in the process of setting up their own gym to the point that the notice was handed in and the next day the new gym opened. And they'd already signed up close to 100 of my existing members. Right? Unprofessional. That basically left, to be honest, the way I found out was they left and I had to cut, one of them walked out on shift. It was Monday, 4 p.m. So I had my clients, their clients to cover and like try and figure it all out. I remember sitting down at 10:30, getting to my desk and my phone was just going ballistic because then they went on social media and decided to announce and things like this. And I was like,
I don't know this. I don't know these.
To be honest, the details are irrelevant. The point being, what I was left with was, do I then hire fast? Because I just lost a full-time coach was 36 hours. I'd lost 72 hours of coaches.
Right.
And I had a full diary from Tuesday.
Yeah.
But that was fine. Laura stepped up from her role in the business. She wasn't a coach at the time. And I just took on the responsibility myself. You go back to your basics, you put the hard work in type of thing, and then you build up a team again.
If you don't mind us asking, are these people still around?
They're still living.
Is the business still around?
Well, unfortunately not. So the business that they set up, One of the individuals pulled the same stunt on the other that they did to me.
Right.
And did that with 2 other subsequent jobs. And now I believe they work in a factory somewhere.
So that just tells you that...
The gym itself, that closed last year.
So longevity isn't... There's no longevity there by doing that to people.
Well, even in this business, whether you've got the honourable, if you do it the right way or the wrong way. In our business, most gyms fail within the first 12 months, 18 months. Basically, once you get out of your rent-free period, once you get out of the 50% rent period, the kit that you've leased starts getting called into play there, and you find out you really do have to pay business rates, then let's just see what's going on. And then when they find out all the mates that said they would come and pay full rate don't, because all mates want mate rates, or most mates want mate rates, you find out fast. And they suffer. That business is now out of it. I'm fully transparent with it. I think I can speak a whole lot more relaxed about the scenario,
right,
objectively, shall we say.
Yeah.
Because that was almost like the second making of me. That happened some point after we were incredibly successful. And there's many roads that led to that. And I'm certainly not, absolved from all blame. At the end of the day, I was captain of the ship, and if the ship starts to flounder...
It's good that you said that.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. Any successes that come our way, that's great. You give me a great introduction. If there's any accolades, and they're earned, great. But you have to own your mistakes as well. And if there's something like that goes wrong, there had to have been mistakes made by me. And so be it. But ultimately, my point being was I didn't hire fast. I did it, and then obviously we built back up, and I would argue that presently we have a far more professional, far better attitude team with a far better work ethic who are far better communicators.
Laura and Jack and the rest of the team there, I don't know the ladies' names.
Well, those ladies are my mother and my aunt.
I apologise. As I say, I keep my head down most of the time, but they're all just that professionalism you talk about. The saying hello to you,
It's key. Have you noticed there's no membership cards at Spartan?
Right.
You don't sign in into a computer.
Yeah.
And it'd be so much easier. Just get the software. We need to know your name. We have a decent membership base, but my aspiration as a Spartan is not to have 1 million members. Obviously, I want enough members, but we need to know everything. Not everything. We need to know those members. And when you come, I want you to feel valued. Hey, Michael, how's it going, mate? As opposed to grunt. I go to other gyms, whether it's a big chain gym or anything else like that. Maybe they're doing something great and I could learn from it. More often than not, they're not. But you just don't have that. It's a personal touch.
And I like it. It's great. It's a great thing. So Jack, as a layman in the, I was going to say exercise industry, that's not what you're in the gym and the training facility industry. To me, like in a lot of other businesses, particularly when you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for an exit. You have an exit strategy. So at the end, you want to build something, then you want to sell it. Or you want to build something, get investment, and then, move it on, whatever, cash your check in, move on to the next thing. But for me as a layman, I don't see that with the gym. I see it very much as what we've been talking about is a labour of passion, really. So my question here is, if there isn't an exit strategy, what else is there? Is there franchising, for instance? Where are the kind of opportunities in that respect to get the big out or the, to buy that gym for your mates?
This whole thing is built on passion. And it was a bit of a vanity project to begin with. Nowhere in the UK had the type of facility that I wanted to train out of, so I built one here. I kind of got sick of commuting to New Jersey. It's a bit of a hike.
It is a little bit of a hike.
And like I said, I'm not a great flyer.
Yeah.
I quite like landing on fucking rivers over there as opposed to runways. So I built that. But from the very first moment, I've been very passionate just to build something truly unique. And I think that evolves slightly over the years as what Spartan is, but the ethos remains the same. I tiny epitaphs, we're in a warehouse. I very much like the blue-collar attitude that we have. We're deliberately in an industrial unit, though I would argue that when you come in, we're far cleaner than what you would expect an industrial unit to be like, if you know what I mean. So we've got those things. There's a huge passion play at works there. And there wasn't an initial exit strategy. When I got in this, I was in my mid-20s, late 20s, and you're not necessarily thinking, okay, but it wasn't right, well, I'll get this, get a franchise, get it sold off and move on to the next
Right,
thing.
yeah.
That was it's a big part of my identity, of my life. I just wanted to build something. I have been offered the opportunity for franchises many times over the years. The biggest catch for me on that front, and I've touched on it, yes, I could do a turnkey operation. I could sell it. Right? I know in and out.
Spartan system.
Of course it is. I've got that. And it works. Why? Because I've been here 13 years. I'm a profitable fucking gym. I've got a wall full of champions, and yet I've got 90% of my members who aren't that type of demographic that are kicking ass. Spartan record breakers. We had 15 Spartans lifting that. Every single one of them set a PB on every lift that they lifted, and most weren't lifting barbells in January. Right? We get results. But I know how to choose the right units, negotiate the right leases with the landlords, get the right equipment from the right supplier, all the mistakes that I made, I know all those things. So to replicate, to build another Spartan with me at the helm, guiding it, wouldn't be hard. In the scheme of things, it's not that expensive. Staffing is your problem.
So that's what's holding you back.
Not necessarily, because I also never wanted a franchise.
Okay.
I never saw Spartan as a franchise. But if I did, and you think, well, you could do those things, I'm on site. I'm part of the team, even when I'm off site. And under normal circumstances, you know that I travel back to Florida and try and do as much work around as I possibly can. But ultimately, it's that culture, it's that community. And that was something that I could never really get around my head. And I thought that if I did that, then I would dilute what we offered at Spartan.
Gotcha.
Now, others have done it far more successfully. Tremendous. But think of one gym brand, Ultimate Performance. They were like in like 10 different continents. Nick Mitchell's place. Big fan of Nick Mitchell, big fan of Ultimate Performance. We're a similar but different setup. I enjoy Spartan for what it is, but also I have a goal of what I want to make it. And I kind of play my cards a little close to my chest. Not so much so that my competition don't get wind of what I'm going to be doing, because if you look at my track record, it's pretty easy to figure out which way I'm going to go. But I'm very much a man of that. I have 6 items coming in from Prime Fitness USA on a shipment that's due in December of this year. And they will revolutionize certain options within the gym. Why can I say that? Because the bought, the paid for, and the due in. I would like X, Y, and Z. I'm not talking about what I would like. I deal in definites and absolutes. So unless it's a definite, then I tend not to reveal it too much. But I have ambitions of what a facility could be. And I'm choosing my words very carefully here. A facility. What a facility and what a community could be. There's many different ways you could describe what it would entail. Spartan's in its 5th premises right now, so we call it Spartan 5.0, immensely imaginative. If you have a look at what we offer, we are not just a gym membership. Look at the different revenue streams that we have, the different services on site. Sure. There's a trajectory for that. So I have a goal of what I would like to achieve. That being said, I'm leasehold. I want to be freehold. That in itself brings freedom.
Yeah.
At some point, you know, when I'm far more silver than I really am, you know, and my face stops, well, it'll still age in fucking dog years, things like that. It'll get to some point, it'll give me options. But I do have ambitions to have a long-term legacy within the local community, especially through the charitable arm. And if the business goes where I want to, then that can continue indefinitely. But again, then there has to be a quality control measure. But I love with a passion being in. Admittedly, I work with a far more select base purely because of my commitments. I've worked with yourself recently. I love those things, so it's not something that I'm wanting to step away from. So an exit strategy, I could kind of see the broad strokes of the way it would go. I've got a time frame that I would like to deal with that. COVID has affected that time frame a little bit with some business dealings that are coming off, but only mildly. So it's like me putting it off. We haven't scratched the surface of what I believe a facility could be and what we could build. And until that's done, then that's me.
That's your focus.
That is my focus, and that's great, but that also comes at a cost for the private and personal life. That's my family. Ask Laura, if you know what I mean, because this is the only thing. At the end of the day, I've got a woman in my life. She's called Spartan, and it seems like sometimes I've got a mistress in my life called Laura. You know, it's kind of the way it goes. But no, that's pretty much where we're going. I'm very ambitious for the time being because I believe that we can do it. Things may change my mind, but because I haven't lost the passion for being in the business as well as working on it, then I'm good with that. Plus, I've got so many endeavours outside of it. Obviously, I've got the book, so I've always, not always, but for a very long time now, I've wrote for a lot of publications, magazines, obviously now published through the book, potential to do sequels from that front. I do seminars. I have another branch, another company called Dominate Athlete with a good friend of mine, Tom Hamilton, which is basically going to be an education seminar series that we're going to be able to offer. As well as that, I do have business ventures outside of the gym industry.
Well, the gym gives credence to all of those other avenues of business as well, and at some point I would be interested to hear about the other business adventures you have, maybe on a future podcast.
If they're not gym related.
Yeah,
definitely not.
That would be very good. Jack, I'm going to save this file, so if anything crashes, we've got what we have, and then...
Not a problem. This is my tan man, just put it down there. That's the fucking man in
It's
black.
like I've got the fucking halo on and you're in the dog. Jack, this has been absolutely great. A couple of more fun, well, I hope it's all been fun, but a few more fun hypothetical questions for you. So just real quick fire here.
Okay.
Yeah. 150 million hits your bank tomorrow. What areas of the business do you apply the funds?
149 million to something else. No. What do I apply it to?
To your business account.
First off, freehold, not leasehold.
Freehold, yeah.
Second, education. Internally, that's staff education. It doesn't matter what tools and equipment I could spend 150 million on equipment if we don't know how to get the most out of that equipment for the clients. So it all comes back into reinvesting in your skills, sharpening our knives. Thirdly, it would be the cask arm, the charitable arm, and to build as many bridges as possible between ourselves and the local schools, the local colleges, because they're local to us. They're not a university in concert or anything else like that. I'm looking at Downside College, all of the academies and things like that, so that we can provide much better on-site education for health, well-being, nutrition. It's not just about strength training, because it makes such a massive difference mentally, not just physically. They'd be the areas I'd look at.
Yeah.
And then I'd probably get myself an even bigger, badder truck. But there we go.
You do have a big bad truck. Is it? I was just saying to Jack that I heard him before we saw him, which is great. Something that people seem to misunderstand about you. This could be clients
that I'm arrogant. The one common term that I hear an awful lot. So, so-and-so is going to come to the gym, but that Jackson arrogant. Arrogant is a term that gets used an awful lot about me. The catch is, a lot of people know of me. Very, very few people know me. There's a big difference. And because, to an extent, we're a big fish in a small pond, being in a fairly local community, that is a big misconception. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't always do myself favours on this one. I'm arrogant to an extent. When people have seen me train, especially when I was competing, I'm not your coach then, I'm not your gym owner. I'm tunnel vision on that. When I compete, I don't compete nicely. Right? I'm there to win. When I'm training, I'm there to win. In business, I'm there to win. That doesn't mean that I'm going to stamp on anybody, step on anybody. I will treat people very well indeed, but I can be very tunnel vision. I can be very ambitious. Now that, and as well as that, I've got no problems singing our praises. If we've achieved results, then I'm happy to say, yes, we played a role. Not the only role, we played a role within that. Some people don't like that.
Maybe they need to look internally rather than...
1,000%. To me, in others, I've came across as a dick, and that's my fault. Again, I know what I'll look like. If you're 6'2", 125, 130 kilos with a shaved head, and if someone comes into the gym and you're training or pulling a truck, it can get that. We used to be, Spartan's just a fighting gym. It's just full of cages with fighters. You just train as UFC fighters. Really? I've had like 12 and 13 years, if you know what I mean. But no, arrogant is one. But that, thankfully, is from people who know of me, don't know me.
I wouldn't say you're arrogant. I think confidence is a good word, which is absolutely necessary. And a lot of the feedback I get, some of the comments I get, I'll post it, I've been to the gym today. You've probably seen it on my feed. Oh, it's expensive to train there.
Well, I remember one post, and I believe your response was,
exactly, yeah.
And I actually know that individual. He's a friend of mine. The posted up on that one there.
Right.
Yeah. Stephen Parker, all right, thank you very much, mate. And he hasn't trained here us ever, and it's fine. I'm comfortable in what we can offer.
Yeah.
You know, it's very different if Jack says we were going to do A, B, and C, and you've got a vast line of people that are coming back saying, well, he didn't do any of those things. Show me them. I over deliver. And if I don't, pull me up on it. I'll be the first one to apologise and make sure I rectify it somehow. Next question.
I think hubris is a big failure of a lot of businesses, you know, and hubris and arrogance can come, you know, but confidence is definitely something that, you know, is
Definitely,
is
and
for
I'm
success.
fallible. I make mistakes. I'm very much human. I'm very much a grey person in that regard, not this black and white. I've made so many mistakes. I'd say probably if I was to say there was like a saving grace of mine or a virtue, I will own my mistakes. I will acknowledge them. I won't hide from them. And I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong.
I think that comes from training as well, because if you drop a lift, if you need a help up on that bench, it's my fault because I didn't.
Everything's
you know,
on
I
me.
didn't brace properly. You know, I didn't.
I embrace that. You saw that stupid goddamn weight cut I did. Why did I see it through? Because I said I was going to do it. It's on me. I lead by example, and that comes with pros and comes with cons. But generally, that's a misconception I believe that's out there of me.
What makes you feel
Cliche, coming right back at you when a client achieves. And it doesn't matter what they achieve. I take satisfaction in that, whether I coach the client personally, or they were, better yet, especially now, they were coached by one of my coaches in the gym.
Right.
And
But
they
that
achieved.
feels good.
Yeah, because people invest their hard-earned money. Whether or not we're value for money, Stephen Parker, or not, so relevant. Right now,
Parker's getting it.
Yeah, you're a little
there.
bit Duke. Sorry, Parker. But no, it's not lost on me that we cost money. And especially now, money's not just falling out with fresh air.
But I mean, I'm there 3-4 times a week, and Jesus, I mean, the money I pay for that level, like,
to me, it's whether we're £5 a month, £500 a month, £5 million a month. It's what you get from the return.
Right.
But it's never lost on me that people are investing their hard-earned money, and they're giving up the one true commodity in lifetime. Because you can get money back, you can't get time back. And that could be time they could be spending with the families. Could be time doing other things. They're investing in us. I am morally responsible to do my very best to give a return. So when they achieve, and they don't have to become a world champion to ever get on my wall, but if they achieve, that makes me feel good inside.
Good.
Sounds like a load of shite, but it's true.
No, that's good. That's good. So what's the one thing that a client has said about the training program that you didn't expect? What's something someone said to you that, oh, I didn't expect you to say that, or?
Generally, it's a consensus across the board.
Right.
I thought it would be harder than that.
I thought it would be harder than that, yeah.
Because most people have this idea of what the type of... They might have seen a YouTube clip, or they might have seen, you know... Anytime you see a highlight of something, you've got to remember, when you watch a film trailer, it's the best bits.
Right,
Or what? Bloody whole goddamn body of people, a committee of people decided were the best bits. When you see a highlight, it's just the highlights. So a lot of people are normally terrified. Normally when we get correspondences, I'll join, but I'm not quite fit enough, so I'll get fit and come. They expect the toughest, craziest thing they've ever seen. A lot of people may even be underwhelmed from the first session, especially one with me, again, just because you've been coached by me. I talk a lot. I communicate a lot. If I wanted to get you tired, it's very easy. Let's do 1,000 burpees.
But some people feel they haven't had value for money if they're not knackered coming out the other end.
I get that, but then it's my job to understand and
Yeah.
communicate with the client what are they trying to achieve.
Right.
And if all they want to do is get a beasting, maybe we're not the right fit for them, or maybe that beasting is the right tool at the right time for the right client.
Yeah.
It's a key thing there for me. So a lot of the times, that's what you hear. I thought it would be tougher than that, or thought it would be harder, so that's nice.
Best compliment you've ever had from a client?
I had a client, doesn't train with us anymore, massively obese, which to me, it's an honour when somebody like that comes into a place like Spartan, especially when it's in full flow in the night time.
Guts, mind.
You come in on full flow in the night time and everyone is confident and they're tearing it up. They're all just following the program. To me, that's great, but I know what it's like from an outsider coming in. Music's blasting, weights are blasting, things like that. And then you're coming in, confidence is low, likely body image is low, etc., etc. So they made that huge step come in. Long story short, there was target weight loss. I believe it was to start a family. And we played a role in helping achieve that.
Wonderful.
And he got me a book. And I think it was Stephen Pressfield's Warrior's Code. And there was an inscription inside of it. And it's in my bookcase at home now. So yeah.
Wonderful.
I love books. They're like one of the greatest commodities in life.
Underappreciated, I think.
Very
these
much
days,
so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one sticks in mind. Sticks in the mind.
Biggest surprise you've had over the last month?
Sadly, there's not many surprises of late because I think everything is utterly predictable. However, let's say if we broaden the scope a little bit. The last few months, the biggest surprise to me, and I don't want to make this anyway political, but there was a lot of doom and gloom when lockdowns were coming out. And I remember reading 96% of people in this poll will not be going back to gyms. They'll be doing online Zooms and stuff like that. I'm thinking 96% of who did you canvass? 100% of people can't wait for constant vaccine booster shots, except they were all big pharma companies that they canvassed. I saw time and time again in the media who was writing these articles. People were scared to go back to the gym and stuff like that. And it was a pleasant surprise. Not much of a surprise because at the end of the day I believed in the safety of what we offered, the value of what we offered and stuff, but the fact that was nonsense. People, we have a waiting list. Part of my work tonight is I've got 9 inquiries to get through tonight. It's a very pleasant surprise to see people so optimistic to get back to in-person training and to get back to that in-person community. So that's about as close as a surprise I've had.
I mean, for me, I was... When we were in Florida, stuck in a little apartment, the four of us as a family, and I had a bar and two 30-pound weights I'd bought from Walmart. You know, and in the beginning I'm like, right, I'm going to do this kind of thing with the chair, and I'm going to do push-ups, I'm going to do my bar, and then 2 weeks in you're thinking, I want to get back to LA Fitness.
It's a challenge. You're like, yourself, you saw what we were doing in the lockdowns and stuff. And we did what we could to support the members, and it's great to be proactive and pull up sunny trees outside, and we'll find something to do. But it was just... I always believed in what we could offer and the safety of it, and goddamn the importance from a mental health perspective and a physical health perspective. I believed it. Hook, line and sinker.
Absolutely.
Gym owner believes in gym. Hardly newsworthy material. But see so many different people desperate for it to come back. And then when people would reach out to us, genuinely say, it's so good to be back. Not because they missed my crack or anything like that. It's just nice to be back. We had a summer party 1 or 2 weekends ago. And everyone just loved being able to come and do those things again as a community. It doesn't matter if it was a party. Anyway, so that's been the surprise for me.
Well, mental health wise, me getting back to the gym has just been amazing for my wife's mental health.
Really?
Me being out the house has been very good. So you mentioned this was someone else's question, which I've absolutely stolen. But if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be?
I'll keep it very short and sweet. Work hard, give back.
Good.
You know, the harder I work, the more successful I tend to become, or the luckier I get. If we're going to steal that from somebody else, you've got to work hard in anything, whether that's in personal, professional, athletic, in the gym. I've yet to see a downside to working hard. Granted, you could also make sure you could work smart, and for years I worked very hard, but not necessarily as smart as I could. But again, the commodity, it's the cement, it's the mortar between the bricks. It's working hard.
That comes with experience, though. You know, you can being able to work from the smart side of things.
Me being able to work, the hard work that I put in initially made up for a lot of failures, or covered up for a lot of mistakes and failures, and then give back. And whether that's from like charitable work, community work, or even just spending the time, I will speak to people in my gym even if they haven't paid my hourly rate.
So work hard, give back.
That's it. Work hard, give back.
Turn back time. to your 18-year-old self,
Yeah.
what advice would you give?
Oh, definitely. Number one, when I was 18, I went to Cancun with a girlfriend, and we went for a sunset cruise with a lobster dinner, and I spent 4 days sitting in the bathtub, shitting and vomiting myself.
Don't eat that fucking meal.
Do not go for don't even go to Cancun. Right, but anyway, so there's that. No, honestly, for me, it would be pursue some. I was lucky enough to go to the Royal Grammar School in Newcastle. But I've said this in podcasts in the past, what I found was a downside, and this was the way that I interpreted it at the time. You were either going to become a doctor or a lawyer. So I've seen 20 American TV shows, solicitor. That was it. There was only two career choices. I found the careers guidance lacking, and maybe that's just the way I interpreted it.
You're a big lad, you're going to be a policeman.
Well, yeah,
that was the classic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're over 6 foot. Let's get a hat on you. Yeah,
right.
But definitely take some type of business qualification, because again, that would have obviously made a big difference me coming into this business down there. So that would be one big thing. Competing strongman sooner. I started too late in my mind. I could have done it sooner, and because it gave me so much joy and world experience, then I feel like I should have been doing it sooner. They're probably the two big things for me.
And finally, Jack, the old dinner table cliche question. A lot of cliches tonight. 3 people alive or dead. Who would you have? 3 people alive or dead to have dinner with, an evening with. Who would the 3 people be, and why?
Churchill, Michael Crichton, and Michael Jordan.
Why Churchill, and why?
Churchill again. It so fascinates me. I was lucky enough that we obviously studied World War II in great deal at school. I just genuinely believe that guy empowered not only a nation. There was no greater challenge faced, no darker fate. Was it JFK said to him that he used the English language to empower a nation, and just through the power of speech. And like the pressure that he would have been under, and what he did to galvanize a nation against pretty much insurmountable odds. And that's not to say that we're looking at a holier than whole, whiter than white character.
Right.
I understand the world is grey.
Yeah.
And also, especially in the current climate of fucking lunatics tearing statues down and whatnot, I understand that history can be taken in context of the history that it comes from. But that man saved a nation. He led a nation. I've never seen leadership like it, at least as close to my lifetime as possible, when the odds were so grave, insane. And I find him a deeply fascinating character, whether that's because of all of his witticisms, whether that's because of all of his flaws. Because if you're interested in a character, then are you interested in all areas of them? Not just necessarily the big wins. And there's a lot more to that man than we will fight them on the beaches.
Well, you can't have the night without the day, and Churchill had his flaws. We all have flaws.
We're humans. We're human beings. You asked me I'm assuming the question was which human beings would I have at the table.
Sure, yeah.
Right? Not which Marvel character, which saint am I going to bring here. And there is no such thing as a saint. So no, it fascinates me. I'm not going to say we'd all be speaking German if it wasn't for him, but I think history would be very different if we didn't have his unique leadership qualities at that particular time. And I don't, especially in recent history, modern history, there's been nobody like it. For me, anyway. Deeply fascinating guy, and I've heard he was quite entertained at the dinner table.
Favourite Crichton novel?
Oh, well, god damn, I mean, he's my favourite author, taken way too soon, as many are from fucking cancer. But obviously, I'm hook, line and sinker into Jurassic Park.
Of course.
Hook, line and sinker.
Well, you got Congo.
Congo was a phenomenal book. It was the film wasn't so great, but the book was phenomenal. I love to be honest, I love the vast majority of his works. Love the Andromeda Strain Sphere. The book was fantastic. I know they got a little bit overlooked. The Abyss, the film came out after Sphere, but that was afterwards. And even then, I'd argue The Abyss was a very different film. Huge James Cameron fan. So no Michael Crichton, purely because he is my favourite author. And I don't think anybody could put together the way that he put together things. The concept, the high concept and things like that. Christ, man, the man wrote Jurassic Park, right? That's like pretty much second to the Bible.
Well, I'm a bit of a comics nerd, and there is a theory that he actually stole the concept. I'm going to blow your mind here. Stole the concept for Jurassic Park from an earlier 2000 AD Judge Dredd strip. So I'll send you some
Send me the link and I'd like to take a look
information on that. There's a 2000 AD comic where someone makes a theme park with dinosaurs that they grow
That being
from
said,
all the
there was
materials.
a book from an Australian author, 1984, 1986.
Right,
It's called
right.
Carnosaur.
Oh, okay. Is that similar again? Is it?
Yeah, pretty much that's set in England. Lord,
Okay.
and he's got a private zoo, and he's genetically engineered dinosaurs, and that's to take over the world.
I suppose it's not beyond the realms of, but I'm not taking away from Crichton, by the way.
I'm pretty sure that came out before Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
But then you're taught, okay, so let's say he was inspired by others for the concept, but then he made it high concept.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm a fan of the film, and Christ, I remember being there as like 10 years old when the film came out, jaw-dropping, nothing can compare to that book. That book, and it's often the case, books far supersede the films, but that book to me was superb. And many of his other works, find the guy fascinating, medical doctor. And at one point, did he not have the #1 film in the world, the #1 TV series in the world, and he had the #1 book in the world with The Lost World. Yeah.
So speaking of absolutely classic films, Michael Jordan in Space Jam. So why Michael Jordan? Why is he at the table?
Predominantly he's at the table now because of the documentary on Netflix, The Last Dance.
Okay, I haven't seen it. I'll have to look that up. Yeah.
Right, there you go. So I was a fan of basketball, and especially around the era of the Bulls.
Yeah.
96,
Scottie
97.
Pippen, Noel
Exactly.
Barkley,
I'm a huge
Charles Barkley.
Dennis Rodman fan.
Dennis Rodman.
So that was great, and that I was, as the teenager at the time, I was massively into that, and I was aware they were doing great things. And that was wonderful, and it looked great when we were watching. I think it was on Channel 4. They used to have like NBA footage and stuff like that. It was great. I hadn't played basketball at school or anything, but superstars. I'm no fan of golf. But when Tiger Woods hits a ball, flies up through the trees, goes into a hole in one from 3 million yards, you can't help but appreciate a mastery of a craft. Couldn't give a rat's ass about swimming, but when Michael Phelps wins 655th gold medal, when Usain Bolt slows down halfway and knocks out 0.2 of a second off the world record, you can't help but just sit in awe. Watching the Bulls play, it was almost like they were just playing a different sport.
Yeah.
Then I watched The Last Dance, and a phenomenal documentary. And it goes into a lot more about the character of the guy. And I don't think I've ever been more inspired. I don't know if there's ever been an athlete with the greatest winning mentality. His mentality, at least what came across through the documentary and then subsequently the research that I've done, was second to none, and that far surpasses his achievements on the court, which are beyond legendary.
Right. Yeah.
Just that attitude, and it was a very polarizing figure. And there's a great clip you can, like a 90-second soundbite when he gets kind of emotional on it, when people were complaining about him, and it's his reaction to that, and he says, well, if you don't play that way, don't play that way. And it gives me goosebumps. Just the willingness to become great and then continue and constantly, and then the three-peat twice over. But again, it's just the character, and the guy's obviously living, which certainly helps. It'd be fascinating. I don't know if he would make good dinner company, but as far as I'm concerned, those achievements and the fact that everyone will attest that he drove that team to that, that is a character that's fascinating to me. Achievements like that, it's, to me, that a bit tingly.
Well, Jack, that's a very eclectic table.
Yeah.
I like that very much. And thank you for coming into the shed that I've got here. And apologies for the quality of the camera. I think we've got a good audio recording, but maybe in a few months, new equipment, and we'll reinvest the cash flow into the podcast. We'll get you back, discuss new avenues.
I certainly appreciate you having me on. Especially, I believe it's the first episode, yes?
First episode, yes.
I'm honoured to be the first guest, and I thought that it was an excellent setup, and I appreciate your time, so thank you for inviting me on.
Thank you for anything you want to tell the audience before we leave about what's going on. Visit Spartan Performance, obviously.
Obviously, anybody watching or listening is most welcome to visit Spartan Performance. You don't have to be a member, so you can come and experience that. If you can't and you're interested in the systems that we do, we have a very handily placed Spartan Strength book there, which does go towards my retirement funds.
We'll go.
I believe that it gives a very true reflection of what I'm about, what Spartan's about, and what we do. And it's available on Amazon. Beyond that, if anybody ever wants to reach out to me, you can do so via Instagram. So it's just Jack Lovett. If you hit me a DM there.
We'll get that in the comments.
If you put my links up for the website, my email address, it's very simple. I like to converse with people that are passionate about what I am in terms of the strength training field, the gym business. If you reach out, I'll do my utmost best to respond and reply, and if I can help you, I will.
Jack, wishing you great success, and thank you very much, my friend.
Likewise, appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
And thank you for the coffee as well.
No worries. I don't like bad coffee.